And a lot of the ideas I'm going to present today is based on a paper that I wrote with my colleague Angelina Brotherhood, which is currently under review at Prevention Science, where we're outlining some of these issues, but also reflecting on a broader collaboration I have with a number of colleagues across European countries, where we're developing quality standards in prevention. Now, I'm not going to talk about those quality standards today. There's lots of papers and documents we can look at that, but I just want to acknowledge my colleagues who've helped me think about these issues, and particularly some of the practical considerations as well. So as I've mentioned, that this talk is more about asking questions and providing answers, and I'm really interested in feedback and discussion points as well, because I appreciate that my background is in illicit drugs, it's in alcohol, which brings a particular mindset and a particular way of thinking about prevention. And I know that politics and how we govern people and how we respond to our target groups, that differs between different fields, but sometimes I think drugs are a special case. So I'm also interested to see how some of my ideas resonate in your fields as well. To be honest, I think certainly drug prevention, but wider prevention, I think we're at a critical point. And despite the fantastic work that's been taking place, not only through the EUSDR, but also at a national level, I do think that some of the promise that prevention has promised or presented has not been realised. And there's various reasons for that, and I often engage in discussions on a domestic level about why should we continue to bother with prevention. And I think we need to ask some tough questions. And part of this is contributing to understanding our overall culture of prevention. Many of these issues, these big questions, are something that we tackle in this conference. I'm certainly not going to cover many of these, but I think that challenges such as this not only provide an opportunity to reflect on the science of research, but maybe also about to reflect on our practice as well, and certainly about our prevention policy and what we hope to achieve through our prevention policy, and whether some of the ways that we're doing that, certainly in the drug prevention field, are the most effective ways of doing that. And it was really nice to hear in the opening session today, Catherine and Michal talk about some of these. So you've covered a lot of these issues that saves me a bit of time for discussion later on. I think there's also a problem as well with prevention that as we're gaining an increasingly sophisticated understanding of the determinants of health behaviours, of the determinants of risk behaviours, this is posing additional questions. And it's good that these questions are arising, but it does pose challenges, certainly in the field of drug prevention, as we've gained a broader, more nuanced understanding of the nature of drugs and the consequences of drug use. We've actually realised that drug prevention interventions are no longer sufficient to address these really complex issues. And so when we're thinking about prevention questions and prevention culture, we also need to take on board a whole variety of stakeholders and professional groups and policy contexts. And I don't think we've been very good at doing that so far. And that has largely resulted in, I think, certainly in the drugs field, but maybe in mental health behaviours, that we've ended up with fragmented policy, fragmented practices, and we're losing some of that understanding, I think, about how this can all work together. But I'll return to this a bit later on. So for me, the key questions: firstly, what is prevention culture? Well, I don't know. I'll propose a proposed definition. I'll be interested to know what you think. Before I talk about what is quality, I'll try and extend some of the technical definitions that Michal so eloquently outlined to perhaps bring in more of a practice-orientated definition. And I think as researchers, I know we have a mixed audience today, I think as researchers we don't pay sufficient attention to how practice, policy, decision makers also define quality. And I think that's really important. And then I'll offer, if we have some time, I'll offer a few suggestions that I think, some practical suggestions about how we might begin to change culture. So, in preparing for this talk, I was thinking, well, what is prevention culture? Firstly, there's no normative definition, so your definition might change from my definition. And when I started the European Drug Prevention Quality Standards project along with colleagues 10 years ago, I had quite a straightforward understanding, a straightforward definition about what I thought culture was, prevention culture was. And it was very much focused on actions, professional interactions and processes. And I would argue that my appreciation of culture was rather superficial, and it didn't really reflect on some of the great thinkers in other areas who've actually expanded on what is culture in other areas. And I think I wouldn't attempt to try and summarise the vast works of these great thinkers, such as Deleuze and Butler, but they essentially argue that culture exists because society agrees that it exists, and the form of culture exists because there's compromise, there's discussion, and eventually you reach an equilibrium about what we collectively believe culture is. And that's a very, very different approach from perhaps more technical approaches, which is focused on, for example, workforce competences, certification, training, which is still important, but maybe are not asking the right questions. I don't know, again, I'd be interested to see what you think. So I'd like to, if there's a key recommendation or a key conclusion from my talk, is to engage in a process of self-reflection, which should proceed, I believe, alongside your own personal development in relation to science, research, techniques, to really think about what it is that you're doing in prevention, why you're doing it, and why you want to achieve particular objectives. And I think that a lot of us tend to focus on the technical and research aspects of prevention and prevention culture, without actually reflecting on what this actually means with regards to how we, wider society, view the people that we work with. Now, when I give talks, I run a postgraduate course on addictions policies and interventions. And in one of my first lectures, I ask students to actually think about, why are you on this course? Why do you want to study prevention? Why do you want to study addictions? And they'll say, because, I want to help people, I want to reduce the harm from drugs, or I want to advocate for new types of drug policy and drugs liberalisation, etc. And as part of that, we're getting to think about, okay, so basically your overt reasons, not undertaken, but what do those reasons and those justifications say about how you ultimately view our target groups, or target groups we want to work with? And I really like this top quote by Edmund, a really interesting paper, and I can certainly share all of these papers with you. And he argued that prevention is an ideological litmus test. So our prevention policies, our prevention actions, ultimately are about how we view particular segments of society. Now, this is very relevant for alcohol and drugs. You might argue this might not be relevant for your particular area, but certainly with my field, it is. And I would also perhaps argue that when we're thinking about prevention culture, do we actually pay enough attention to the politics of prevention as well? So I come from a public health background, and right from day one in our undergraduate courses, we talk about the social determinants of health and the social ecological determinants of health as well. But quite often the politics of health gets ignored in this. So how do broader politics, national policies, actually affect the work that we're doing? And how is our prevention research embedded in this? And are we actually enabling particular structures which lead to inequalities, etc.? Are we in fact supporting the status quo in politics? Or could our prevention culture actually help to challenge some of that prevailing politics? Again, I don't know, but these are the sorts of questions that I ask myself in the work that I do. And it does lead to some really interesting work which has emerged from some researchers and thinkers, particularly in Australia, but some of the Nordic countries as well. I hope I've got my geographic term right there. To actually say that is prevention a way of governing society, defining problems and problem people, and does it without a consideration of politics and the culture of prevention reinforce existing ways of acting? And we know that perhaps some prevention activities reinforce gendered and classed ways of responding to target groups. An example that Farrugia gives in his evaluation of Australian alcohol education, where there's a differential programs, where the content of those programs is based upon whether target groups are girls or boys. And the messages and the focus is actually reinforcing gender stereotypes around the acceptability of women's drinking versus, for example, the acceptability of men's drinking. So that's an example about how prevention practice can really embed and reinforce some of these wider issues. And I don't think we're always aware of this, particularly in some types of prevention activity. Okay, so, well, it's good to often move from questions to try and take things forward. It's good to have a context and a background to this. So, with Evangeline Brotherhood, we've tried to reflect on this and trying to expand those original technical definitions to include some of those considerations. So we would argue that actually prevention culture is not just technical standards and competencies, etc., although they're extremely important and they would wholeheartedly support all those sorts of activities. But we need to embed broader societal perspectives within that as well. And how we do that remains to be seen, but these are important considerations, I think.